Today we're going to take a look at the projections feature on Statz.ai. Our projections model has been built by our data science team, takes in team strength rating, long-term form, short-term form, injuries, a few other parameters, weights that all together across 10K simulations and spits out our projection for every single fixture. We do this not only in the Premier League, but Championship, La Liga, Serie A, etc. This is a pro feature or a semi-pro feature even on Statz, so you'll need to become a subscriber to access, but it's well worth it with the level of detail that we go into, which I'm going to demonstrate here. So we have a percentage likelihood for each result. Here we're seeing Chelsea projected at about 65% chance of winning. We actually then take the 365 feed, who are one of our operating partners, and you can see actually the implied chance of winning from theirs is about the same. So we're completely really in line with market here, even though, in theory we're showing a tiny edge. Whereas on something like this, we're giving Brentford a nearly 50% chance of winning. The market actually only implies 40%, so we show our a fairly big edge there on Brentford to win. We can actually use the toggle here to show that in decimal odds to make that a bit clearer. The market makes Brentford this price here, 2.45, whereas our model sees them more like an even money shot. We also then provide a kind of score projection for every single team. Again, this is kind of all modeled out based on a bunch of parameters, and again do some comparison with the 365 odds there. And then we do something similar as well on overs and both teams to score. We can look at the most likely BTTS here being the Spurs-Bournemouth game, closely followed by Brighton versus City. We do this for, like I said, a whole number of leagues. Anything that we do projections for will be in this section. So we can go back and look at all this stuff for La Liga, or we can look at it for the Championship. So you get a very good range of competitions as well as this large amount of detail. If we go, finish on Premier League here. We then look at the team projections. We then go a step further than that, and we look at pretty much the key stats, and we project out for each of them. So here we're looking at Chelsea versus Fulham, and we can see this amount of goals, shots on target, corners, fouls and yellow cards. We get pretty granular with this stuff, to be honest, even down to the number of passes. If we want to order by shots on target, we can see here that we expect Chelsea, Spurs and United to kind of have the most. We do something like tackles. Again, maybe United chasing their tails are in for tackles. So we get into a decent level of that team level stats. We can also go to a different league here and show you that we have a good amount of coverage for this kind of stuff, which obviously gives you an advantage if you're starting to look for these lines on 365 or other operators. We then take those team projections and we apply them to players. So we actually ratio out our team projections to players based on recent and long-term form. So here we have Haaland for over 3 shots and 1.5 shots on target. Obviously, it's up to users what they want to do with these numbers. No one ever has a 3.1 shots, but it's just the midpoint of our projections when run 10,000 simulations. We can look at, for example, who's likely to commit the most fouls this weekend. Lukic, Will Hughes, Semenyo, Yates, Adams. They're all pretty regular offenders, to be honest. Look at something like tackles. I was going to say Biff has been right at the top of the charts lately. So we do all this sorts of stuff, and you can then start to look at things like assists and start to project for goal involvement, which is interesting for fantasy. But we also have our own projections for FPL. So this is for upcoming game week 3. Bruno projected at the top. Palmer, assuming he plays, not far behind. Model obviously likes United this week. Not sure what that's seeing that I'm not. But you can get a full list of FPL and can even kind of go in to do that by position. And that's obviously useful for FPL players, and we're expanding our range of fantasy stuff. So we're doing stuff for fan team as well. Similar-ish outcomes projected here. They have a slightly different scoring system, so I'm sure we'll see different numbers. We also do a projection for the Opta points score, which actually last season was a fairly regular betting market on Flutter and a few others. Haven't seen it so far this year, but is useful if that does reappear, but also is a decent parameter for kind of how well a player is playing. And then finally, and importantly, we have our best bets section. So this is us taking our model's projection, i.e. here, comparing against the implied odds from 365, and then displaying the edge. And then we'll take a calculation of the edge, the strength of projection, to give everything a star rating. And I think we only show 3 stars and above here. So we'll kind of go down, and I don't think there'll be much that's, or anything below 3 here. We'll keep looking at this through the season, whether we have to adjust this star rating. We need some user input and testing. And we're going to run a kind of index rating on our 5-star bets to see how they perform across the year. But yeah, this is really, how our model shows an advantage. So QPR here, we value them significantly as being significantly stronger than the market does. So yeah, they would be a bet for us for this weekend. Obviously, what we're doing here is we're looking at value, not necessarily the most likely to win. We're trying to find value here, so I think that's important to say. We can do this across some different markets as well, so we can add in 1.5 goals if we wanted to. We can find here we like these games to finish over 1.5 goals, and what we're also, and you can also then use this to specifically choose a league. So we've got nothing in La Liga there. Do we have anything in the Premier League? A couple. And then coming soon, importantly, will be a player prop section here, where we will show how our model shows an advantage or otherwise against Paddy Power, Ladbrokes, and eventually 365 player markets. So exciting stuff in the projection section at Statz.